discussing with us the utilization of space assets for downstream applications. I give the floor over to you, Antonio, so you can take it forward from here.
Thank you very much, Carl, and thank you for everyone participating in our today's call. My name is Antonio Ismailis, and I'm a satellite applications engineer working for the European Space Agency. Today, the topic of this session is going to be the utilization of space assets for the downstream application sector. However, before I will start my session, I would like to thank the organizers, Carl, and the team in this sense for setting up and running such a great event. And I would like to encourage the participants of this call, as well as all the other sessions, in order to gather as many information as possible, try to expand your network, and consider this event as a great opportunity in order to think about ideas for businesses which promote new technologies such as IoT. And in general, they contribute to the delivery of services which are really needed from the market. Now, in terms of some housekeeping rules, I would like to ask you if it is possible, please, to keep your microphones muted during the session, and again, if possible, for bandwidth purposes, have your webcams switched off. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free at any time to use the conversation function in order to submit your questions, which will be gathered by Carl and the team. At the end of my session, we will have a Q&A where we'll try to answer all your questions. Now, in regards to the agenda of our today's topic, I will give you a brief introduction about ESA, what ESA is, the European Space Agency, and what it does. Then we will discuss a little bit more about the Business Applications and Space Solutions Program. The acronym is BUS, just for you to remember. And then in the end, I will give you some examples and use cases of space assets in the downstream application sector. In the end, we will close the session with the Q&A, where, as we said before, we'll try to answer all your questions. On this next slide, I will like to talk to you a little bit more about ESA. So ESA, of course, is the European Space Agency. But in a nutshell, ESA is Europe's gateway to space. ESA is consisted of 22 member states and occupies more than 5,000 employees at this point. The headquarters of ESA are in Paris, and there are 7 sites across Europe where ESA has facilities. Also, ESA is a world leader when it comes to science and technology, and is active across every area of the space sector. Since 1975, ESA has developed more than 80 satellites, and at this point, there are more than 220 successful launches which are completed, successfully concluded from Europe's spaceport, which is based in Kourou. And now, in terms of what we do at ESA, our work basically is split in 4 main pillars, and these are science and exploration, and support, safety and security, and applications. For the science and exploration, we are dealing with the scientific, all these corresponding scientific research, the exploration of other astronomical bodies, as well as the research which takes place in the International Space Station. For the support, which is the second pillar of our work, we are supporting Europe's launch capability, and of course we are responsible for maintaining and operating the satellites, ESA satellites which are in space. Concluding, we are proceeding with all the corresponding R&D activities in order to build space technologies for the future and ensure things are going to progress well. In terms of safety and security, we are dealing with safety matters that are related to natural hazards, such as, for example, space debris or cybersecurity. And the last part of our work is dealing with the applications, which is the topic of our today's discussion. On the slide here, you can actually see that ESA is consisted of several directories. Therefore, we have the Earth Observation Directory, the explorations, the operations, the technology, and the telecommunications and integrated applications. The acronym of that is TIA. And this is the directory I work for, and the directory that is responsible for the applications element. This is where the applications, the Space Solutions program, which is the program dealing with the applications aspect, is lies. But a few words more in terms of the ESA Space Solutions program. You can find it as Space Solutions program or Business Applications and Space Solutions, with the acronym of that being BASS, B-A-S-S. So you could say that I'm a little bit biased, but it is actually true, and it's a fact that the Space Solutions program is the largest space innovation technology in the world, and by many is considered as the go-to place in order to establish great businesses which involve space, and they aim to improve our everyday life. ESA's goal when it comes to the Space Solutions program is to support European companies, including, of course, startups and SMEs, in order for the previous to develop businesses which are using space technologies and they, I suppose, utilize space data. The offering of ESA is funding as well as support, which could be technical as well as business, with the aim to generate new successful businesses and create impact in the sector. Impact is significantly important for us. And impact can have actually different kind of shapes. So it could be the generation of jobs, it could be the growth of the entities which participate in our program, and so on and so forth. So on this slide, I would like to share some information with you in regards of the benefits the Space Solutions program offers to the participants. So to start with, participants can actually get benefited from zero equity funding, which could range from 50K up to 2+ million. And of course, the difference in the funding depends on the type of the activity. Then participants can actually get benefited from tailored project management support, as well as technical and commercial guidance. They can get access to ESA's network of partners, and of course they can use ESA's brand in order to gain credibility and visibility. The Space Solutions program involves 3 different types of activities which are presented in this slide. These are the kickstarts, the feasibility studies, and the demo projects. The difference between these type of activities is purely the duration of time which is required for their execution. So kickstart and the funding, the amount of funding. So kickstarts, for example, are 6 months activities, and the total amount of money available per activity is 80K. Feasibility studies are 9 months activities, and the total price could be up to 150K. And demo projects could range anything between a year and a half to 2+ years. So it's much more involved activities, and funding could range from several hundreds of thousands of euros up to millions of euros. Now, what is our aim within ESA in terms of the Space Solution program is to show that space is open for business and has the power to improve our everyday lives. So space has great potential, and this is what we want to demonstrate in the downstream application sector. In the following slide, I would like to show you the utilization of space assets, which are basically presented in the left-hand side. So you can actually see the corresponding logos for Earth observation, satellite navigation, satellite comms, space flight technologies, and space weather. On the right-hand side, you can actually see the different markets. So we have different market sectors such as maritime, aviation, energy, transport, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So basically, our aim here, our goal is to merge space assets with terrestrial technologies such as IoT, which is basically the main topic of this event. And you can actually see IoT in the great center of this slide, but also other terrestrial technologies such as 5G, blockchain, artificial intelligence, VR, AR, as well as big data analytics. And the goal is to merge space assets and terrestrial technologies in order to deliver beneficial services to the different market sectors that are presented in the right-hand side. The right-hand side basically is the downstream application sector, where you can actually, we want to see beneficial services for the end users, which are going to cause impact in the sector in general. Participants and proposals of the Space Solutions Program, however, need to comply with three main criteria that we set. And these criteria are, the first one, all the proposed solutions need to meet user needs. As you can imagine, if user needs are not met, there's no purpose for such a solution to exist, yes? The second criterion is the technical feasibility, and the third one is the commercial viability. The technical feasibility has to deal with how technically feasible it is. So can we actually do it within the time frame or within the means, the technological means that we have in hand? This refers to the entities that participate in the calls. And the commercial viability has to deal with needs, basically all the participants, all the proposals need to demonstrate how sustainable the proposed solutions are and what is going to be their viability, the commercial viability in the long run. On this slide now, I want to show you some, I want to demonstrate you some of ESA's partners. It's just a very small sample. So here on this slide that you can actually see that ESA is collaborating with other space agencies, with governmental bodies from several nations within EU. We collaborate also with big technology players. We have big international institutions and actors as well as associators. At this point, I would like to highlight to the participants that the presented material will be available to you upon request. So if you are interested in order to access the material that I'm presenting at this point, please feel free to contact the organizers. We will leave the corresponding emails on the chat at the end of the session. And you can actually get a hold of the material that I'm presenting in order to gather more information about what we discussed today. On the following slides, I'm going to talk to you about the actual use cases and the real examples of space assets contributing to the downstream application sector. On this specific slide, I'm presenting some thematic calls that we have raised in the downstream application sector. In ESA, at the BUS program, which are what we call them calls, but they're announcement of opportunities. This is the term that is used in ESA, where participants from member states of ESA will actually participate in order to take part of these calls. Some of them are still active, and I'm going to go through a little bit more detail in terms of these specific cases. Some of them are finished. You can actually, through the links that I'm providing on this slide, you can actually access each and every one of these calls in order to gather additional information and material to see what were the main areas of focus, some suggestions, the contribution of space assets in each of these calls. And I believe that in general, this material is really valuable. Now, I will go very briefly, super quickly, to some of the calls that are actually finished at this point, but I would like to show you how important was the utilization of space assets in this sense. So the first one has to do with marine energy, which is basically the first picture on the left. In this way, marine energy and space assets were actually contributing to the appointment of optimal locations in order to deploy offshore infrastructure. Offshore infrastructure could be wind, could be solar, or combined infrastructure. So space assets in this sense were significantly important in order to appoint these specific locations in order to deploy the infrastructure. Of course, monitoring is a major element when it comes to offshore Therefore, space assets were contributing to sufficient and effective monitoring and monitoring of operations, as well as establishment of sufficient communications. And of course, space assets were contributing to the safety and security. For the other call, which is called responsible agri-tech, responsible agri, briefly, what we try to do is, I suppose, demonstrate the utilization of space assets to the for agricultural purposes. So space assets in this sense were supporting us in order to monitor or predict the yield growth, to come up with new principles such as carbon farming, for example, especially considering what is happening now with the agreement that was signed in November 2021 and COP26. Carbon farming is a topic of significant importance at this point. So additionally, for responsible agri-tech and the utilization of space assets, people were actually gaining access to historical data in order for them to analyze the performance of locations of interest in respect to different crop types. And then again, being in a position to predict potential yield growth and so on and so forth. In terms of the other call, water scarcity call, space assets were contributing to effective and so efficient monitoring of water waste and appoint the specific locations where maybe we were facing big water leaks. So again, in order to gather more information, I strongly encourage you to use the links which are provided on the right-hand side of this presentation. Have a look at the calls in order to see how we can actually use space assets in order to contribute to the downstream application sector. On the next two slides, I'm going to discuss, I'm going to give you some information about a couple of calls which are actually still open. So if you want to participate, possibly we need to discuss your way of involvement, let's say. So the first one is water as a food resource. In this aspect, we have some areas of focus. We have four main areas of focus. The first one is fish farms and fishing in remote locations. The second area of focus is precision fishing. The third is new food from the oceans. And then the fourth and last one is safety and transparency. So for the first area, which is fish farms in general are located in seawater, where they are usually deployed as floating infrastructures with fish cages, as we can actually see on the pictures. However, fish farms close to gulls and bays are vulnerable to diseases and parasites due to the lack of water refreshment and, of course, due to the accumulation of pollutants. So in that sense, the utilization of space assets could actually contribute to effective monitoring of, for example, the water quality, all the parameters that could actually affect the fish farms, real-time communications, and so on and so forth. Precision fishing is dealing with advanced tools and technologies in order to optimize fishing operations and management. New food from the oceans is basically dealing with all the concepts of cultivating algae. Algae at this point could be used as a fertilizer, as a resource of bioenergy. It's also food for livestock and aquaculture, and is an ingredient of cosmetics and several dietary supplements. And last but not least, safety and transparency. When we talk about safety, we were focusing in remote fish farms, for example, that could be attractive to targets, attractive targets to breach, because of course they are remote. And we want, in terms of transparency, we want to ensure transparency of the food, so people and consumers will actually get all the details of the origins of fish catch potentially, and gather information in order to be confident about where the food comes from, and the food history, let's call it like that. So On that call, the water as a food resource call, space solutions were needed in order to help in identifying more suitable locations for deployment when it comes to infrastructure. They're contributing to effective monitoring and operations management of facilities with space assets such as SATCOMs in that sense. We're in a position to establish data and voice communication to fishing vessels as well as infrastructure, and we were able to mitigate environmental impact that potentially could get cost. I'm going to talk a little bit about a space asset, SATCOMs in this sense, which was used to a great extent for that specific call. So SATCOMs provides connectivity to remote locations, as we said, such as coastal lines or open sea infrastructures. Is immediately and scalably available since instant deployments can actually take place. SATCOMs is a very versatile technology since it can get integrated with IoT, as we said before. An IoT system making use of SATCOMs are instrumental for monitoring infrastructure locations, natural conditions, and provide a plethora of information which are essential for the food production and operation status of facilities. Additionally, with SATCOMs and IoT systems, we are in a position to monitor effectively and efficiently the environmental impact which can be met at the monitor sites. And last, I would like to talk to you about the Space for Tourism call, which is a very, very interesting call. The use of space assets, ideas actually of how we can actually use space assets and what for, are that we can use space assets in order to monitor, for example, the conditions of places, in order to promote natural sites. We can check the environmental impact at specific places of interest. Of course, we can have connectivity at remote locations. With space assets, we can proceed with what we call structural health monitoring. And this is a very interesting topic, especially when it comes to historical sites, where we can actually see what is the performance of these sites in time, how they perform because of their exposure to the elements. And of course, such inspections are significantly more valuable in comparison to, I suppose, eye inspections. With space assets, we can actually have virtual tours, which are extremely popular during the COVID era, unfortunately. But also we can have efficient aviation due to the reduction of CO2 emissions and less delays, which lead to optimal trips. We can have better logistics. We can have unmanned transportation with the principles, with the concepts of autonomous vehicles. And last but not least, we can have seamless and safe travel. I hope that you managed to get a quick understanding as to how we can actually utilize space assets for all these downstream application solutions and propositions. I hope you found this presentation interesting, and at this point I would like to open the floor for all the potential questions you may have. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to thank again the organizers, and I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. I'm not sure if we have any questions. However, I wrote down the Valletta Tech Summit email address in the chat over here. So if you have any questions, even after the session has ended, please feel free to reach out to us, even to receive the presentation that Antonio's just kindly shared with us. Please get back to us, and we'll be sure to see to your query. Thank you. And thank you, Antonios, for your very interesting presentation.
Thank you very much, Carl, and thank you, not just Carl, but the entire team, as well as the participants, and I hope to hear back from you soon.
Thank you, and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.